Quiet Resistance, from Courageous Teen Resistors, Primary Sources from the Holocaust, by Ann Byers. Primary source. Background. Anti-Semitism, or discrimination against and hatred for Jewish people, had existed in Europe for centuries before World War II. This prejudice led to persecution and even violence against Europe's Jewish people. When the Nazis rose to power in 1933, they believed that Jewish people were a threat to the German state, and they put into action plans to exterminate Jews. About the author. Ann Byers is a teacher, writer, and youth worker. She has written several juvenile nonfiction books that are focused on young people's experiences during the Holocaust. Byers currently lives in Fresno, California. Quiet Resistance, from Courageous Teen Resistors, Primary Sources from the Holocaust, by Ann Byers. On September 1, 1939, Hitler's war against the Jews began in Eastern Europe. He had driven a large portion of the Jews of Germany and Austria into Poland. On September 1st, his army invaded Poland. It continued eastward until it entered the Soviet Union in July 1941. In less than 2 years, more than 8 million Jews had come under Hitler's regime. Hitler's plan was to turn all of Eastern Europe into Lebensraum, or living space, for Aryan Germans. There would be no place for Jews, but he could not rid his territory of so many people right away. He had to wait until he was powerful enough so that no one could oppose him. In the meantime, he would herd the Jewish people together into ghettos, very small sections of cities, so they would be easy to deal with when the time came, and he would beat them down mercilessly. Life in a ghetto. So, in the conquered lands of the East, Hitler's Nazi overlords issued one heartless decree after another. Chaim Kaplan, who kept a diary of life in the Warsaw Ghetto in Poland, described the people's reaction to one of the unjust laws. The law was issued soon after Germany took over Poland, before the people were forced into ghettos. The forced labor decree gnaws away at our people. Because of the extent of the catastrophe, the Jews do not believe that it will come to pass, even though they know the nature of the conqueror very, very well, and his tyrannical attitude toward them has already been felt on their backs, even though they know he has no pity or human feeling in relation to the Jews. In spite of all this, their attitude toward the terrible decree he has published is one of frivolity, because they believe it will not last long. But the catastrophe did come to pass, and it grew uglier. More decrees corralled the Jews into ghettos. Conditions in the crowded ghettos were deplorable. Food was rationed, and it was never enough. Diseases raced through the cramped quarters. Heavy restrictions and cruel punishments were imposed. Still, the people did not resist. On February 16, 1940, Kaplan wrote, "There is no room in our inner feelings for despair and depression. We greet every edict with a deprecating, wishing evil away smile, although we are conscious that the creators and enactors of these cruel decrees are psychopaths. A poison of diseased hatred permeates the blood of the Nazis, and therefore all their stupid decrees. The fruit of this hatred are doomed to failure." Such an awareness saves us from despair. Anything founded upon insanity must not last long. But the insane cruelty lasted longer than 5 more years. Its suddenness made resistance nearly impossible. A 13-year-old boy described in his diary the beginning of the ghetto of Vilna, Lithuania. The streets are closed off. The streets are turbulent. A ghetto is being created for Vilna Jews. People are packing. The women go back and forth. They wring their hands. I go around with bleary eyes among the bundles. See how we are being uprooted overnight from our home. Soon we have our first view of the move to the ghetto. A gray-black mass of people goes harnessed to large bundles. People fall, bundles scatter, they drive us on, do not let us rest. I think of nothing, not what I am losing, not what I have just lost, not what is in store for me. I do not see the streets before me, the people passing by. I only feel that I am terribly weary. I feel that a hurt is burning inside me. I feel that my freedom is being robbed from me, my home, and the familiar Vilna streets I love so much. I have been cut off from all that is dear and precious to me. The little streets are still full of a restless mass of people. It is hard to push your way through. I feel as if I were in a box. There is no air to breathe. Wherever you go, you encounter a gate that hems you in. Even if the Jews had the time to resist, they did not have the means. Everything had been stripped from them. Their Gentile neighbors dared not help them. In fact, many of them were nearly as anti-Semitic as the Nazis. A teenager from Warsaw felt the hate of his Polish neighbors. They had the chance to show how the anti-Semitism was built in the people of Poland. It was so built in, the anti-Semitism for those people, that they, even if they lost the country, they still have won their anti-Semitism against the Jewish people. I was in a camp in Poland. I could have run away from that camp. I could have just walked over the fence. Where am I going to go? Who am I going to go to? I was working with Polish people. Next to me there was a Pole. He saw that every day I looked skinnier. I didn't have a glass of water. I didn't have bread. Nothing. They had all those holiday breads. It hurts you so much that you are living in a country for so many years. And the people turn their back on you, actually turn their back on you. Frank Bleichman was 19 when the Jews in his town of Kamionka, Poland, were ordered into the Lubarto ghetto. Because he looked Aryan, he evaded the roundup and took refuge among Polish farmers. He described his treatment among the non-Jewish Poles. They were hunting us, the German, Polish police, and the Polish collaborators. Jewish women, when they went to villages to buy food, they were intercepted from the Polish hoodlums, collaborators. Some were killed. They were robbed, beaten, and called all kind of dirty, anti-Semitic names. Resistance was difficult because it was punished severely. A survivor of the ghettos, the work camps, and the death camps gave this reason that so many people submitted to the abuse, like sheep, without lifting a finger in their defense. It is very difficult to raise a finger against a machine gun. It was also difficult to live, knowing that because of my foolish act, 10 men have been executed, and there are widows and orphans. Smuggling. In the ghettos, resistance focused on survival. Smuggling food into the ghetto was the only way to remain alive. Usually, children had the best chance of smuggling successfully. Charlene Schiff, 12 when Hitler took over her city, described how she found food for herself, her mother, and her sister outside the ghetto of Horschau. Ingeniously, we dug out 2 holes in the fences, below the fences, so that a child could sneak out to the other side and, take off the Star of David and try to act like a normal human being and see if we could obtain food. And now and then, children brought home some food back to the ghetto. I did it many times. It was very dangerous, because if one was caught, one would pay with life. This was the order, to shoot, to kill the person, the perpetrator. I was very lucky, and now and then I would bring a slice of bread. I would bring a carrot or a potato or an egg, and these were very, very great achievements. My mother made me promise that I wouldn't do it anymore. but I disobeyed. Not every foray into the Aryan side succeeded, and every attempt carried the risk of death. Schiff came close to dying for her bravery. There was one time when I snuck out of the ghetto, and I was lucky to obtain 2 eggs. And I remember I was wearing a dress with little puffed sleeves, and I put an egg in each sleeve and tried to make my way back into the ghetto. I paid for these 2 eggs with a small gold ring that had a ruby in it that my mother sewed into my coat. I was quite proud of myself, and I just could picture my mother's and my sister's faces when they came home and we had 2 eggs to eat. Just before I was entering the hole, the camouflaged hole back into the ghetto, a Ukrainian guard spotted me, and he ran over and he started screaming at me. And he found the 2 eggs and threw them on the sidewalk, and made me kneel down and rubbed my face in them, and screamed at me to get right back where I belong and never to show my face again on the outside. I was petrified, and I didn't give away the hiding place, the hiding entrance. I marched back into the ghetto, or he threw me back into the ghetto, and that was the end of that. He could have killed me. Food was not the only item smuggled into the ghettos. Information was critical to people who were cut off from the rest of the world. If they knew when an action, a raid, was going to take place, they could hide. If they heard from relatives, they might be encouraged. Getting information out was also important. The Jews wanted the world to know what happened to them. Some Aryan-looking Jews acted as couriers, carrying news in and out of the ghettos. Again, young people, teenagers, were best suited for this work. They were not tied down with the responsibilities of family. Lee Hammerstein was 18 when she became a courier between the Krakow ghetto and the Plazow camp. Maintaining her Aryan identity gave her more than a few scares. I was sitting in front of a big basket with vegetables, cleaning it, and the sun rays came on my head, and one of the girls said, "Look, her hair is reddish like a Jewess." And everybody laughed. And I laughed most hilariously, But inside, the fear was gnawing on my insides, At another time, the kitchen chef grabbed me and put my head on the table. He was preparing the sausage for the evening supper. And he put this long knife to my neck and said, "You see, if you were Jewish, I would cut off your head." Big laughter in the room, and I laughed most hilariously, of course. But you know what it does to a psyche of a young girl in her formative years? Can you imagine? With nobody to console you, with nobody to tell you it's okay, it'll be better, hold on. Total isolation, total loneliness. It's a terrible feeling. There is nobody you can go to ask for help. You can nobody ask for advice. You had to make life-threatening decisions all by yourself, in a very short time, and you never knew whether your decision will be beneficial to you or detrimental to your existence. It was like playing Russian roulette with your life. And it was not only one incident, it was this way from the moment I came on the Aryan side.